Californians, drivers, and riders need to know this. Uber and Lyft paid $400,000 to a firm conducting independent studies on Proposition 22. So the BS that they are trying to spoon feed you, the BS that they are publicizing out there, they actually spent $400,000 to create these independent studies. The ballot measure campaign has been touting studies that show data favorable to the gig economy companies, but how independent are they? On election day, California voters will decide on Proposition 22, a contentious ballot measure that decides the fate of the state's gig workers. As the vote approaches, both sides are making their closing arguments. The yes side, backed by companies like Uber and Lyft, is pushing for workers to be classified as independent contractors, while the no side is arguing workers should be employees. One of the main points of contention is whether the initiative will help or hurt gig workers. That's where a barrage of studies come in. Uber and Lyft and the Yes on Proposition 22 campaign have sent emails and messages to voters citing independent studies, including one that calculates hundreds of thousands of jobs will be lost if Proposition 22 fails. The message also references a survey that says drivers wish to remain independent contractors by a 4-to-1 margin. A popular ride-hail blogger conducted that survey through an informal poll on his website, but many of the other studies referenced by the campaign were financed by Uber, Lyft, and other companies that will benefit if Proposition 22 passes. Berkeley Research Group, which conducted the study on job loss, has received more than $411,000 from the Yes campaign, according to public records filed with California Secretary of State. Benenson Strategy Group at the University of California, Riverside also conducted research that was funded by Uber and Lyft, respectively. The No campaign has also referenced studies in its messaging, though a spokesman for the campaign said it didn't commission any of that research. The torrent of studies come amid a heated campaign over Proposition 22, which is backed by Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, and Postmates. The battle over the measure has ramifications beyond California because other states such as New York, New Jersey, Oregon, and Washington are mulling legislation similar to California's AB 5, which requires most gig economy companies to reclassify their workers as employees. The gig economy companies have poured more than $203 million into the effort to prevent that reclassification in the state, which would add payroll costs and benefits like healthcare and a minimum wage requirement. The No campaign, backed by unions and labor groups, has raised $15 million. It's the most expensive ballot measure campaign in California history. Both sides have reached deep into the political playbook to make their cases. The Yes campaign has hired conservative operatives to reportedly dig up dirt on labor activists and paid $85,000 to a firm run by the president of the California NAACP, which has endorsed its position. Meanwhile, the No campaign has held driver caravans and protests against the gig economy companies, including one in front of the Uber CEO's house. These are wink, wink, nudge, nudge studies, Sonoma State University professor says. So it's a joke what they did there. The ride-hailing industry has a long history of funding research that's favorable to its interests, and studies like those cited by the Yes campaign are common in California politics, said David McCuen, a political science professor at Sonoma University. He added that it isn't unusual for campaign organizers to pay consultants with the goal of getting a supportive study. In terms of creating quote-unquote independent studies, these are not. These are wink-wink, nudge-nudge studies. Campaigns are always loosely affiliated with allies who find sympathetic research. Drivers need to know this, man. You're being conned and you're falling for this crap. The Yes campaign has leaned on a Berkeley Research Group study that says at least 80% of drivers would disappear if gig economy companies were forced to classify workers as employees. Researchers used confidential and proprietary data from these companies, the firm says in its report, which was released in May. Over the past year, the firm has received 28 separate payments from the Yes on Proposition 22 campaign, according to public records, and it's authored 2 studies on gig worker reclassification. Berkeley Research Group, which isn't affiliated with the University of California, Berkeley, declined to comment. Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and Postmates didn't return requests for comment. Instacart referred CNET to the Yes on Proposition 22 campaign. A spokesman for the Yes campaign declined to comment on the payments to Berkeley Research Group, but directed CNET to a passage in the report that says the findings are the result of objective analysis. Mike Roth, a spokesman for the No campaign, says Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash have taken a shine to buying themselves rigged studies to make their case. The app companies can spend all the money they want on bogus data, but they can't change the truth. Very well said. It's a bit strange to see our surveys referenced in Uber and Lyft's propaganda. Harry Campbell, founder of the Rideshare Guy blog. The No campaign tends to point to various studies that calculate drivers' earnings as higher when they're classified as employees. Some of these reports were conducted by economists at the University of California, Berkeley Institute for Research on Labor and Employment. A paper released by the Institute earlier this month concludes that most drivers in California make less than minimum wage. If reclassified as employees, the study estimates driver earnings would increase by about 30%, and gig economy companies would still need to use part-time workers during high-demand peak hours. The paper's author, Michael Reich, said the Berkeley Research Group study is flawed because it doesn't incorporate those fluctuations in demand. Their conclusions of huge job losses disappear once these errors are corrected, Reich said. Earlier this week, the Yes campaign issued a press release saying independent surveys show groundswell of support amongst drivers for Prop 22. The release linked to 3 surveys by Harry Campbell, a popular Los Angeles-based ride-hail driver and blogger known as the Rideshare Guy. The surveys were conducted in November 2019, May 2020, and October 2020. Campbell's surveys are done through a non-scientific poll on his blog, which asks drivers from across the country about being gig workers. He says he reaches out to thousands of drivers through his email list, and usually a few hundred respond. The October 2020 survey, for example, received 609 responses. Campbell's surveys rely on driver honesty, but they don't necessarily guarantee a representative sample of truthful answers. California public radio station KQED noted in a report that some of the respondents might not even be actual drivers. Very interesting. Now, shout out to my sponsor, Cover, Kover. They are a gig protection plan which starts at $7 a month, cover all these companies. If you get deactivated by a wrongful report, by a rider or by somebody that's ordering food, then the company gets Legal Rideshare in Chicago to send out the legal letters to request immediate reinstatement so you can continue on earning. If you get into an accident, they kick in, cover up to 80% of your lost earnings. If your car ends up in the body shop, they kick in up to 80% of your earnings. What I do like about Cover, once you're with them, is that this powerful legal arm called Legal Rideshare, right, sends out the letters on your behalf to these companies. These are attorney letters coming from legalrideshare.com to get you back into the driver wheel, behind the driver wheel. Now, if you've had an injury or car property damage, they handle the insurance claim. They only get paid when you get paid. If you've lost wages because you had an injury and your car was damaged, legalrideshare.com, go after the insurance company and get your monies. Please feel free to leave your feedback on the report that I just read. It was a rather long article. Your thoughts, please, and please stay safe. Wear your masks and sanitize your cars. Thank you.